Let's go.
This is turning into one of the weirdest shows I've ever done. It really is.
Catch me if you can, goddammit. Catch me if you can. You hear me?
Will Noonan's so funny and I'm after him, so I guess I'm after Noonan.
You're listening to Hypothetically with Will Noonan.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever time it is where you are, thank you for listening to Hypothetically with Will Noonan. That's me, coming at you right now from the Honda Accord sedan. I'm in downtown Boston. I'm right on Newbury Street in a parking spot in my car doing this podcast. I got doing a little bit of a comedy skits, doing some comedy jokes at McGreevy's McGreevy's Pub and Restaurant. I don't fucking know what the actual name is, but it's over here and I'm there in like an hour. And I was like, what better time to record a podcast and talk to the people than right now? So before I get into all the business, how are you? How you doing? You good? Just say something out loud right now. I don't care where you are. I don't care if you're at work. I don't care if you're in the car alone. I don't care if you're masturbating with your pants around your ankles in a public restroom. I want you to say out loud, good, when I say how you doing. So anyway, let's have a conversation real quick. You have a line. It is good. All right, here we go. We're gonna do the scene right now. So anyway, you know what I care about? I care about you. How are you doing? Good. That's what I like to hear. Good. Thank you. That's a great answer. I wonder how many zeros of people actually said the word good out loud, but I don't know. Anywho, so much to talk about. So many fun things have happened, so I'm just going to go right into business time and go down my list. So I had the great pleasure of seeing one of the greatest comedians of all time, if not top 3 greatest comedians ever to live, much less alive right now. One of my favorites, my top 3, definitely Chris fucking Rock. Chris Rock. C-R. The Chris Rock. I have wanted to see Chris Rock for years. Never seen him ever. Never seen him in a fucking big stadium. Never seen him in a small comedy club. Never seen him working on shit. Never seen him backstage somewhere. Never seen him anywhere ever. And probably wouldn't have seen him for a while if my brother wasn't such a great guy and got me tickets, took me there. What's the word I'm looking for? It was my birthday or Christmas or something, and my brother Greg was like, hey man, I got you and me tickets to go see Chris Rock in November. It's going to be a fucking awesome time. And I was like, it is going to be an awesome time. Thank you, how thoughtful. So fast forward to November, and then we're going to see Chris Rock together, and it was a blast. I'm going to tell you the whole story of the evening because there's some interesting aspects to it. Alright, so first of all, I just fucking love Chris Rock. My brother knows that because my brother is a smart dude, and he likes to sort of ask questions about the comedy world because that's how smart people are so smart. They ask questions. They don't just sit around and talk all the time about the things they know. They ask questions of people so they can learn more. And one of my brother's kind of, interests is the comedy world, as a lot of people's interests are. Probably why you're listening to this podcast right now if you're not a comedian. Probably why comedy podcasts are so popular. It's an interesting world. It's like stripping or pro wrestling. It's interesting to look behind the curtain and find out what's there. So my brother really likes to know, that kind of stuff. And he's a fan of comedy himself. And I've often said he probably could have been a comedian, my brother, or almost anyone in my family. My immediate family could have been a comedian, I think, if they wanted to be. And I can even see a few coming up in the younger ranks. I can see some talent, some people that might have been, might be future comedians one day. So my brother likes to, he likes to talk about, hey, who are your favorite comics right now? And who do you like? And we have conversations like that all the time. And one of the things he must have remembered was my love for Chris Rock and how much I enjoy Chris Rock and how much I'm inspired by Chris Rock. And, my brother's a good dude that way. And got tickets to this thing like a year in advance. And I almost completely forgot about it until it came up on the calendar. And it was like, fuck yeah, we're going to see him. So, me and my brother meet in the city. We don't live that far from each other anyway. And we meet near the theater. We're going to go to this place I like, Rock Bottom. Just a regular sort of fucking club. What did I say? Club? I'm thinking comedy club because it's near Nick's. But it's a bar. Sorry, it's a bar and restaurant. Just regular fucking shit. Burgers, pub food, etc. My kind of joint. I'm a food retard. I'm a food idiot. I don't know anything about food. I don't know what makes good food good or bad food bad or any of that fucking shit. I know if I like to eat it, I will continue to eat it. If I don't like to eat it, I'm probably going to stop eating it. But I don't like fancy food usually. I'm pretty much a meat and potatoes guy. It's changing slightly now that I've quit smoking cigarettes. I can kind of taste things a little bit better, so I'm probably slightly more knowledgeable in the ways of food, but even then I still think I'm at best a high-functioning Down syndrome person when it comes to food. At best. At my very best. My brother, on the other hand, opposite. Loves food, knows good food, has the dough to spend money on good food, all that kind of shit. So he likes a good restaurant. He knows where the good restaurants are. So, to be fair to my brother, he tried to do Rock Bottom. He tried to do a couple other places nearby. We looked around, but all of it was fucking just packed because Chris Rock was doing a show at the Wang, and Dennis Leary was at the Wilbur, and there was another show, I think Color Purple, at the Schubert, and it was just fucking people, seas of people all trying to eat. My brother's like, I know a place. So he takes me to this joint that he likes to go to, which was just so fucking fancy, man. It was like, I wish I could remember the name of it. But really fancy, and I don't do fancy restaurants very well. I'm not a big fan. I don't even really like restaurants. It's really not a good quality of mine because people seem to love restaurants. People seem to love to go out to eat. It's a big thing. Let's go out to eat. We'll sit, we'll talk, we'll spend a shitload of money. It'll be fun. I feel like, I don't know, there's something about going out to eat to me. It's just like a countdown. When I walk into the restaurant, it's just a countdown to like, when is this fucking stupid charade over? I hate everyone looking at you when you walk in. Who are those people? I don't know them. I hate everyone looking at you while you walk to your thing. I hate people looking at your food while you eat it. Should I get that? Should I eat what he's eating? People just checking each other out. And then you got to go through the whole fucking deal with the waitress and all that shit. And it's bad enough when you're at a regular restaurant and they're like, let me just tell you about the specials. And I'm like, okay, what are they? Oh, it's all the seafood and shit you don't want to eat. That's why it's special. It's all the shit that no one wants. So now we've lowered the price and called it special. And here you go. Ta-da. So I don't get that shit. I don't really enjoy it. But Greg does, and we go to this place that's like just ultra, ultra fancy. So fancy that everything needs to be explained. If my brother wants a glass of wine, she's got to tell him about the wine for 5 minutes before he drinks it. My brother got a cheese plate. And this poor fucking soul. I don't know. This guy seemed happy. I think he actually wanted this job, and maybe he's on his way to becoming a chef or some shit someday. So maybe this is like what he wants to be doing, so I shouldn't feel such immense, heartbreaking pity for this guy. But he just comes over with this thing of cheese, and he's like all smiles, and he's like, this cheese here is half milk and half goat. It comes from Spain. This cheese here is full goat. It comes from England. The goat's name was Harold, and it was dyslexic. This next piece of cheese is honey milk, which is milk infused with some honey that the chef actually gets himself from Vermont with the bees. He can't wait for them to make the honey, so he just squeezes bees in his bare hand. He's allergic to bees. This almost kills the chef, but it adds a flavor that you can't really achieve without fear. I was just like, dude, I just want to eat this shitty fucking cheese, which most of it tasted like every piece of cheese I've ever fucking had. Yeah, they tasted like different types of cheese, cheddar, mozzarella, whatever, but it wasn't some crazy fucking special tasting cheese to me. Like I said, I don't think I have very sophisticated taste buds. But anyway, not to like say, oh, my brother, what a dick. He takes me to expensive restaurants and Chris Rock shows. I'm not trying to say that, but it's like one of those things where I don't even want to go to that restaurant, but now I'm here eating $100 cheese going, oh boy. I didn't ask for this. Now I gotta eat it and be like, thank you so much, right? I don't even thank you so much. It's just like, I'd just rather be eating a burger. I was kind of hungry. Everything was seafood or fucking some ingredient that you never wanted to eat in your life, mixed in with a bunch of things that sound delicious. But alas, we ate and drank. My brother ate octopus and all this crazy shit, and then we go over to see Chris Rock. And we get there, me and my brother aren't fucking savages. The show starts at 7:30. We get there at 7 because we want to see everybody. I want to see who the openers are. He's interested too, and we're not the kind of people who stroll into comedy shows late. So we get there at 7. But that doesn't fucking matter because this is probably my only complaint about the whole thing is that Chris Rock's shows take away your cell phone or put it in a pouch, which that I don't give a shit about. I actually, at the end of it all, I did think it made the show better, and I was happy to not have my phone the whole time. But I wish I had just known not to bring my phone or known to come a little earlier than even 7, so I made it in on time. Because what ended up happening is the line to get in was just incredibly long and took forever, and we didn't get inside until after 7:30, and pretty much missed most of Artie Fuqua's opening set, which I was bummed about. Did want to see him do stand-up. Hadn't seen him in like fucking 7 or 8 years do stand-up comedy. Wanted us, and then we're sitting down, and then the middle act came out, who was Michelle Wolf, who's a headliner in her own right and has an HBO special. It just came out, and so I was also really excited. I was like, wow, Michelle Wolf, that's cool, and never seen her live. That'll be cool as fuck to see what she's doing. Really fucking enjoyed her set, but I was kind of bummed for her because I felt like a lot of people were still coming in and sitting down and settling in like while she was performing because of this whole cell phone thing. And I bet in some cities the whole cell phone thing goes a lot smoother than in other cities because it's probably just give or take, because it wasn't like Chris Rock's people were doing this stuff with the phones. It seemed like the Wang Center staff was doing the stuff with the phone or helping with the stuff with the phone. So it was kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It was kind of like backed up, and they were older, and they didn't seem to really know what the fuck they were doing. So just took fucking forever. And then the Wang makes you do fucking metal detectors and all that shit. So by the time we got in there, Fuqua is wrapping it up, and this poor guy barely got a crowd at all. And then the next comedian is Michelle Wolf, who was great, but I felt a little bit bad for her because it's this great opportunity to open for Chris Rock. And I was like, I wonder if every night she's performing for people who are coming in like, what the fuck just happened with my cell phone? And then the next person, of course, is Chris fucking Rock. And what can you say? It was just a fucking amazing experience. I wish I could sort of tell you some of the bits he did, because that's really what I would want to talk about the most. But I know this is a special that's going to be coming out on Netflix in 2018. And I could tell that it's mostly fleshed out. Probably 90% fleshed out, But he's still working on some stuff, and it was very fucking cool to see that, and very fucking cool to see that progress. Chris Rock had a couple jokes that really, I didn't think he missed one time. I don't think a single joke missed, but you could tell he's still tweaking it for the masses. Like, I was kind of like laughing at everything. I'm like, this is a brilliant bit. This is brilliant writing. But you see some of the stuff, the Joe Six-Pack, Chris Rock fan was kind of like, huh? And he's still got to tweak that. And that's what's so great about him, is that he makes it like, he really does these incredibly thoughtful, well-written bits, but he has such a great personality and so much charisma that it feels like just almost, it goes down smooth like hacky comedy, but then you're like, this isn't even close to hacky. It's actually like a brilliant bit. So, not to give away anything he did, but man, I walked out of that show. Standing ovation to start it, standing ovation to end it, wire to wire, amazing fucking stand-up. And I walked out of there. I mean, he was already probably my third or fourth favorite comedian of all time. And still is. The other ones, if you really want to know, Richard Pryor being number one. Probably Dave Chappelle being number two. And then Seinfeld or Chris Rock in the 3 spot. And that kind of changes depending on what I'm working on. Like, when I'm really, really writing a lot of jokes, I think sometimes I'm like, man, Seinfeld was just so brilliant with the way his mind was. But when I'm focusing on performance, I'm like, it's all about Richard Pryor and Dave Chappelle. All these guys, though, I'd say all of them are just as good performers as they are writers, and vice versa. But in case you want to know who my top 4 or 5 are, Richard Pryor, Dave Chappelle, Seinfeld or Chris Rock. At this moment, probably Chris Rock, then Seinfeld, then we're getting into like highly specific. What kind of mood am I in? Todd Barry's up there. I don't think he gets enough credit as a really. Oh, Dave Attell. How did I leave him out? Those guys, the people from that era of New York, like Dave Attell, Todd Barry, Sarah Silverman. There was a time there where that little scene that those people were a part of was so good, and putting out really good albums and stuff like that. Todd Barry has some fucking ridiculous albums. So anyway, that's what I got to say about the Chris Rock show. And then me and my brother just talked about how brilliant of a writer he is that whole time while we were there. So that was that. Then I did forget to mention, though, there was a thing where I don't know if I'm about to get a ticket. These 2 meter maids are talking, and I'm like, I'm still in the car with the engine on, recording a podcast. Get away from me, meter maids. You naughty meter maids. There was one thing to sort of mention that happened at the Chris Rock show. I think he did two nights of shows in Boston, or 3 nights. But at the one I was at Sunday night, this woman charged the stage at one point and yelled, "You made fun of my autistic son," to Chris Rock. I actually didn't even hear it when she said it. No one could, except for the people up front. And I found out, a friend of mine was up front later. I found out what she had yelled. But it was fucking bizarre. And Chris Rock looked freaked out and then angry and then kind of freaked out again. It was a tense moment. Because it was funny because he was talking about how weird things have become and how crazy people have become. And then like 2 minutes after he was done with that bit, this lady, maybe it wasn't 2 minutes, to be honest. I think now in retrospect, it was longer. But he did use it to call back to that. He's like, see what I'm talking about? Fucking shit's crazy. But it was a weird moment. I didn't like it as a comic. and it kind of fucked up his flow. He was in such a great rhythm, and you could tell that's probably why he was pissed, was because it fucked up his rhythm so much, you know. One of those things us comics love is our rhythm. So anyway, that's that. Another funny thing happened to me this week. I talked about this on the on the Artie and Anthony Show as well, but it's just a quick story I thought was kind of funny from my life. I forgot I was hanging out with a younger lady who was 23, and we're just hanging, shooting the shit. It was before Thanksgiving, talking about. She goes, "What's your I can't remember how this happened. Oh yeah, what are you thankful for?" And I said, oh no. Oh God, I'm sorry. I know this is fucking brutal to listen to. I got it now. Let me take a sip of coffee. I realize I need it. Wake up, juice. She said, "Oh, Thanksgiving's coming up. It's so great. What are you thankful for?" And I said something like, "I don't know. I like my new apartment. I'm thankful for that." And I was like, "What are you thankful for?" And she said, "I'm thankful for all the great friends I've made this year." And I was kind of just like, I don't know. Reflexively, I was just like, fag. Which I still think was funny, and I was just kidding, and all that shit. All the fucking things you obviously know, but apparently need explaining. But it was super funny because she flipped out because she's 23, and it's a different culture, and there's a huge age gap when it comes to things like that. She had all this like stuff. She was like, I heard I have gay friends, and I've heard them called that in high school, and I was just like, yeah. I'm sorry. But the real story was don't jokingly say fag in front of a true millennial, because you're going to get a little bit of a talking to. And it was this moment I'd never really had with a woman that I was hanging out with or talking to or whatever, where I like made a joke like that, and she was just like, "Come on, man." It's not like I dropped an N-bomb, like, these N-words are really fucking crossing this they're jaywalking or some shit. Then I'd be like, I'd expect someone to be like, "Whoa," but just jokingly being like fag. I was kind of like, obviously I'm kidding. I'm saying that because that's what someone would say to you. And then fast forward a few days later, and I'm hanging out with the same gal, and she's had a few drinks this time, and we've been to a comedy show, and we're having a fun time, and we were driving, and then she called something gay. She was like, "Oh, that's so gay." So, you know me, I pulled the car over, put it in park, looked at her with both hands on the steering wheel, and I was like, "We do not say that word in this car. I've learned that lesson from you the hard way. We do not say homophobic things in this car." And then we had a good laugh and made out. So the moral of that story is, you might get a talking to, but it's not gonna actually really keep you. Millennial girls will shit on you for saying the word fag, but it's not a total deal breaker. All right, now it's time to shit on myself a little bit. I mean, that last story kind of counts as shitting on myself too, but I headlined Nick's Comedy Stop on December 1st and 2nd, and I want to thank everyone who came out to those shows. They were fucking awesome shows, and Saturday night was pretty much a sellout. I mean, they were bringing in chairs from other places, so I believe that's a sellout. But Friday was super light, and that's the night I want to talk about because excuse me, I did something, nothing major, nothing that maybe even a lot of people noticed, but this is like, real inside comedy sort of shit. This is like, we're going to get kind of technical about stand-up comedy right now. And if that's something you like, well, buckle up and enjoy, because that's what we're going to do. If it's something you dislike, I'm sorry, maybe you want to hit that little 30-second forward button like 7 or 8 times and get to whatever I'm talking to after this. But I think if you're listening to Hypothetically with Will Noonan, you probably like a little bit of technical comedy stuff. But this, we're gonna get technical. This is for all the comedians and would-be comedians and aspiring comedians out there. 'Cause I made a mistake. I did something that I'm not proud of, and I almost need to confess it to you guys to put it behind me fully. So here we go. Comedy confessions. I wish I still had the tape. I had to delete a ton of shit on my phone just for memory purposes. Shit was fucked. The phone was getting fucked, and it was like, your storage is fucked, and I needed to delete a bunch of things just to make some room. And one of the things I accidentally deleted during that time was this audio file from Nick's. Not the show Saturday night where I fucking killed it and had a great time and everyone went home happy, but the show Friday night. Because I did something. I did something that I have not done in a long time as a comic, but something that I've seen done a million times. And basically, it was a shitty move. So enough fucking talking about how shitty it was, Will, and just tell the fucking story. So I show up at Nick's Friday, and I had already fucked myself over a little bit because I was expecting big crowds all weekend, because I had done a lot of promo for these gigs. The last couple times I was at Nick's Comedy Stop, we had great attendance. I hadn't done Nick's Comedy Stop in a while, so I was like, we got people who are going to show up because they haven't been. And mainly because we had gotten a great write-up in the Metro, and we were put on this list of like things you got to see this summer or this winter with all these great fucking comics. So I was like, oh, fuck yeah, man. It's going to sell so many tickets. Podcast numbers have been great. Everything's been good. So I was like, this is going to be the time I do Nick's, and I sell out the whole weekend. So I fucked myself already by going into the weekend with big expectations, right? So then I show up Friday, and I get there, and I'm getting the club is so cool. They don't give a shit. I mean, they give a shit, but they're not gonna give me a ton of shit if I don't sell a shitload of tickets on Friday night. They're kind of going like, oh, tomorrow night's looking good, tonight's looking a little light. But they weren't being dicks about it, but I was like, oh man, I'm sorry. I thought I would have more. I was feeling like shitty about not filling up the room. Then, there's like all these headaches. So, so I'm like nervous and feeling kind of bad because I'm like, man, no one's here. And then I'm like, what if no one comes tomorrow? Like, what's going to happen? So I was sort of pissed, I'll say. Not at people for not coming, not at the club, just like at myself for not drawing. I was like, man, I wish there were some more people here. I was doing like the Irish Catholic, like shitting on myself thing. So there's tons of comics there to hang out, which is great, and they're being supportive. But I also was kind of like, and this is where I start to get into the stupid, shitty rookie mistake kind of decision making, is where I'm like, man, all these comics are here, and they're gonna think I'm not that good because like there's no people here, and they're probably all thinking that I'm like a phony and that I'm an imposter and that I don't deserve to be headlining. And I start getting all these fucking weird, stupid, like little bitch thoughts, And there, whatever. There's cute girls there, all kinds of like fucking things. So I'm like, great. Then the bar comedy club's training 2 new waitresses. They're super dope. And, there's only like 14, 15, 16 people in this crowd. I think there ended up being like 20, 30 people total by the end. But it was light. And, but I was like, whatever, we'll have fun. Tomorrow will be what tomorrow will be. But I was like, oh, this is a good chance to work on new material or whatever. So here's the thing. all that being in my head and all that stuff, which none of it should have been there. You should never go into a show with that much fucking mental baggage. You should just fucking wipe yourself clean of that stuff and go out there. I think because it was Nick's and because I love that place and I feel so comfortable there, somewhere I let my guard down with myself and I was letting myself think all this crap thoughts, right? So I ended up going out on stage, and some of the comics bombed before me and some of them did okay, but it was tough going. And I go out there and I make a couple jokes about how small the crowd is, and they get a couple laughs, and then I start getting into stand-up, start getting into my act, and start trying to entertain these fucking people. At this point, I don't think I've done anything wrong. But then I started doing something that sucks and something that comics shouldn't do. Something that is just a rookie mistake and a fucking selfish masturbatory move. I start commenting on the fact that there's no one there, like fucking way too much. I'd say that that's okay to do maybe 3 times in a 40-minute set at most, and that's if you can really work it in and make it funny. But I was just doing it too much. I knew it as I wasn't even doing bad. I was killing with these 30 people, and then all of a sudden I'd be like, yeah, it's great, I'm killing, but fucking there's 20 people here, like, and then ruining whatever good faith I just accrued with them and myself, and being kind of like basically a brat. I thought about this hard the night after it happened, and for a couple right after it happened, and I talked to Matt Brown about it because he was there both nights. I was like, I was a brat, man. I was a little brat of a fucking comic. I was up there. These people came to see comedy, and maybe 5 times in 40 minutes I mentioned, 5 or 6 times in 40 minutes I mentioned how small the crowd was, which is just fucking stupid and selfish and like ruins the show. And I, as a comic from an open micer, like, not before I did comedy, I would sit there while guys did that and be like, what the fuck, dude? Like, thanks for just making us feel like we all wasted our time being here. And I'd seen it, and I'd done it. And I really would like to think that I was kind of past that sort of mistake. But to be 100% honest, I looked back at, like, after it happened, I was like, why did this happen? I looked back at the schedule of shows that I'd done, and I was like, well, I've been doing fucking theaters. I've been doing fucking really good shows for these huge, adoring crowds. And basically, I was out there in a comedy club fucking doing it for real again, and I got a little bit bratty about it, and I fucking definitely got, like, cunty, you know? And I don't think it was something anyone necessarily walked out of there going like, man, that guy was an asshole, because it probably wasn't that noticeable to anyone but me. But I fucking was kicking myself about it from the second it ended. I said it to like Phoebe and a few people who were there. I was like, well, I mentioned this show was light like 10 too many times. Like, what the fuck was I doing up there? And basically I was just being a little fucking brat. I wish I had saved the tape. That really would have kind of sold this whole story, because you would have actually heard it. Because you can hear me, I'm getting laughs, I'm doing just fine, and then all of a sudden I just ruin it by being like, but there's not many people here. It's a fucking shitty move. And for anyone who was there Friday, I apologize for doing it. If you were there and you didn't see things that way, or if you did, I'd love an email to know what it was like from the crowd. But it was just one of those things. I was kind of like, I was pissed at myself. I'm still pissed. I don't know if it's coming through, but just rethinking about it, I'm like, what the fuck were you doing that night, man? So Saturday night I went back, and with the attitude, I was like, I don't care if there's fucking 6 people in the crowd or 600. I am fucking giving them the best show ever, and I'm going to love every single person in that crowd. And luckily we had pretty much a sellout, and it was a fucking awesome show, top to bottom. Everyone did great, and it was a ton of fun. And, lesson learned. But if you're a comedian and that's your game, some guys make their whole fucking act, shitting on the crowd or shitting on themselves, because that works when you're starting out and you don't have a lot of confidence and you're doing small shows. And it can always work for just a few minutes, It can always work for just a little bit of it goes a long way. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess. 2 minutes or so is all you need. So that was that. And then Saturday was fucking awesome. And but I really beat myself up about that. I still am. I hate it when comedians do that shit. Well, last night in Vegas, blah, 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 show was way better. It's like, yeah, well, we weren't there last night, fuckhead. So why don't you tell us about tonight? So then, that was probably also the beginning of a little bit of an illness. I was probably in a bad mood. I was kind of getting a little bit sick. Nothing major, but just the fucking typical New England and winter time, cold shit type stuff. I don't know. Maybe there's a doctor who listens to this thing. And by the way, if you are a doctor and you listen to this, please contact me. I would really love a friend who's a doctor. So I can ask you if I'm dying all the time. Because that's my go-to. If I have a cold or something, my first thought is it's probably cancer or death, and then I dial back from there. Kind of a hypochondriac in that way. Hypochondria. Just like high, pathetically, I'm hypochondria. So, but I've been running a lot too, and if you're a doctor and you listen, I don't know, like, should I just not be running if I have a little bit of a cold, or does the running cure the cold because I'm sweating and getting all that shit out of me? Feels like the latter is true because it feels good out there, but sometimes I've been getting a cough and sniffly without really feeling sick, and I'm like, it's just because I'm running in the cold all the time. So that's just a little interesting question that I have. But I've had a very full schedule the past fucking few weeks. I've just been doing a lot of radio and a lot of podcasts and a lot of shows and sick the entire time. I started to get sick probably on December 1st and 2nd at Nick's. I was feeling a little bit of it. Then some family stuff on Sunday, birthday party for my niece. And then, So then Capo was Monday, and I could feel myself sweating a little bit that night and feeling a little bit weird, but I was like, whatever. But then I woke up Wednesday morning. I was going to go down and do the Cumia show, the Artie and Anthony Show, as it's now called. And I woke up that morning worried because I woke up and I was all covered in sweat. And the roof of my mouth was all itchy, and I was feeling all weird and achy, and I was like, fuck, like, am I sick right now? The flu's going around. A bunch of bookers I know have the flu, and it's flu season or whatever, and I was like, I always usually get the flu like once every 3 or 4 years. I couldn't remember the last time I got it. I'm like, oh, shit, is this the flu? And for like an iota of a second, I thought about texting Allie at the Cumia show and being like, I don't know if I can come down. I'm like, because you're thinking for me, doing the Cumia show often is like a 12-hour day or so. I gotta drive to New York City, park, do the actual show, hang out a little bit after the show, get my car out of New York City during rush hour, drive all the way back. I usually don't go back until I usually leave around 11 and get back around 11. That's 12 hours. Which is kind of a long day, and I was like, fuck, if I'm actually really sick right now, that's not going to work. But I was like, I gave myself like a quick one-man medical assessment, and I was like, nah, I'm good. I just need a shower and a cup of coffee, and I'll be fine. But I did notice, like, when I was driving down there, I kept getting sweaty, just sitting in the driver's seat. I was sweating a little bit, and then when I was finally there and on the show with Anthony, I could feel myself kind of getting a little sweaty underneath the lights of the studio. And I was like, fuck, I think I might be getting sick. But it's a good thing I didn't cancel because Artie Lang had the flu that day. And Artie Lang could not be there. A lot of people want to know about Artie Lang, what I know about Artie Lang. And as far as I know, he really had the flu. That's all I know, is that he really had the flu. It's December, and I'm going to believe that he has the flu. But that was a little bit sketchy. I was like, fuck, I'm starting to feel really sick. So instead of kind of being sick as fuck for like one day, I've kind of just stretched out being sick over like the course of a week. The people who got the worst of it were, well, so then I come back from Kumia's show, you know, spend that night or whatever at home, and then I wake up the next day and I'm like, man, I'm still feeling sick. I do the Cotton Southie podcast, Cotton Southie Live. Maureen and Heather from Cotton Southie did their first ever live podcast at Laugh Boston. Drew and a fantastic audience, and I was the guest, and we had a fucking blast. And they did good, but I was so sick that night, I felt like I was kind of like high. I hadn't even smoked weed, but I felt like I was like high as shit. And even on stage, I was kind of like, I felt almost drunk or high. You know when you get that kind of sick? It's kind of a good buzz, actually. So that was that show, and then the next day, I had to do a half hour in Sturbridge, Massachusetts. And that was where I fucking that was the day I probably should have just stayed home that day. That was like the peak sickness day. And that was the day I probably should have just stayed in, but I was like, fuck that. I've been doing, none of this radio shit pays. Kumia doesn't pay. I was like, I need to make some money instead of fucking constantly just putting out. I've been doing a lot of radio, which is non-paying. So I was like, I need to make some dough. I need to do this gig. So I drive out there to Sturbridge, which was like a 2-hour drive in traffic on a Friday. And they were the ones who really got the worst of my sickness. Like I had a good set and everything, but it was not really like my standard. I was kind of like, it was basically like a drunk person. I was telling my jokes a little differently. I was fucking, I was kind of like jumping around and doing some different stuff. But it was a good time. But when I got back from that gig, I was like, man, that felt like a dream. That whole night felt like a dream, bruh. I don't even know if that really happened. And, now I'm starting to feel a little bit better. Ran my first half marathon yesterday, 13.1 miles, first time I'd ever run that. So I was like, I must be getting better. But I still feel weird sometimes. I'm still kind of hawking up loogies and blowing my nose a lot. But anyway, I've done 1, 2, 3, 4 podcasts this week that aren't mine. So if you're out there listening to shit, check out the Artie and Anthony Show on Compound Media. That's a subscription service, so you might not want to pay. I think it's something like $6 a month. I pay like $26 twice a year for my subscription. I mean, I love listening to the shows, but also you can look on YouTube too. Someone put up a clip of me and Artie and Anthony talking about Norm Macdonald and put it in a clip, and it was cool. It actually just came up on my YouTube recommendations because I watched so many Artie and Anthony clips anyway. It just, one of them came up, and I was like, hey, I'm in this. And then I watched it, and it was really good, so you can kind of check that stuff out on YouTube too if you're interested. But Cotton Southie podcast, check them out if you like me. I was on there this week. Don Zolo has a new podcast coming out. I don't think it's came out yet, but we did one this week. And Hoppy Hour with Ryan Hoppy, who's a radio DJ down there in Tampa. We just talked today, and that was a nice little interview and a nice little talk too. So I know I didn't put out a podcast in a couple weeks, but I fucking recorded like a bunch of other people's, and I got a bunch more coming up. So I don't know, we got about 10 minutes here left the old podcaster Rooney, and I got some things I kind of wanted to talk about having to do. Well, I guess this kind of has to do with my life still anyway, but it's like, I don't know, maybe someone can explain this whole thing to me, but I feel like I'm a pretty good dude for a comedian. Like, I haven't fucked over a lot of people in stand-up comedy. As long as I've been in Boston, I've been a non-drinker. And I can't claim before I drank, before I quit drinking. I can't say I was always the best guy. I can't say that I didn't have some nights where I really was like an asshole and kind of mean to people. As my sense of humor is, I'm a comedian, and my sense of humor is a comedian's sense of humor, which is sometimes to be too brutal and too mean. And that's all good when you're with other comedians. But I was sometimes like that with my friends. And probably often in a way that wasn't funny at all and just came off as like super mean and super bitter and too intense for the moment. I used to do stuff like that when I was drunk. Like I had a bunch of friends who were kind of like, when I lived in New York, I knew like 3 or 4 guys who had daughters that they just never saw. Which was one of those things where, there's a lot to those stories, and you can't always like you don't know what's going on really in people's lives, but part of you inside is like, that guy should hang out with his daughter. I don't care what he says. It's kind of shitty that he's not doing it. And, you get judgmental. And what I would do, I would get fucking drunk and start telling people like, you're not that good of a dad. If I had a daughter, I'd hang out with her, which is like, what the fuck, dude? It's not a good thing to do to people. It's not nice. But I did do it, but since quitting drinking, you don't usually do stuff like that. You rarely kind of do something you regret that much because you're of your right mind most of the time. And especially in Boston comedy, I feel like I've been pretty good to everyone. I don't have any real enemies here. I have a couple. There's a couple people who, like, you can't just be in comedy for as long as I have and not have a couple enemies. But for the most part, I like to think my comedy karma and my Boston karma is pretty good, and it's in the right place where I like it. But I have, on occasion, dated comedians, female comedians, and sometimes even lately I have gone on dates with comedians. Not always the smartest thing, whatever, because it can end, awkwardly, but I will say in my past there's not like some great, there's not some like time I really fucked over a girl comedian or vice versa. Like, there's no one out there who could say like anything really bad about me. But I have dated comedians, you can't say that, right? But anyway, I found out there's this dude in Boston who keeps telling every chick who starts comedy to like avoid me. I found out that there's some haters out there, people. I found out from sort of because people repeat this shit. I also think it's funny how everyone thinks they can get away with like saying this stuff and like it's not going to come back. Because what ends up happening is people get to know you and then they're like, oh, you're not a bad guy. And then they go, it's surprising that so-and-so told me you were a bad guy. And here's the thing. I thought about this long and hard. I was like, what am I doing that needs to change? This has to be my fault. And then I was like, no, it's not my fault. It's just the circumstances of a situation. You're just older now. You're the guy in your 30s. And of course, younger guys are going to fucking shit on you. That's like one of their defenses. I used to do it all the fucking time. Because I'd be 23, and then I'd be like, why are the 23-year-old girls hooking up with the 33-year-old guys? They should be hooking up with me. We're the same age. Fuck that guy. And then I'd start telling them, like, you should stay away from that guy and stay with me. So then I was like, oh, that's all that's happening here. Probably. But it also kind of was like a tough lesson for the kid, Tough lesson for me to learn, because I was like, you can be as good as good can be. You can be nice. You can not drink. You can fucking help young comics and all this shit, and people are still gonna talk shit about you, and they're still gonna fucking, basically tell lies, because that's how it goes. I did find out, though, this one dude who was talking shit because of something I had said on this podcast, which made me kind of laugh and question how like much of a comedian this guy is, because the thing in question was this guy Ken Reed, who is, show business wise, people kind of think there's like this big feud between us, but I don't think he really cares that much, and I don't think I really care that much. I know I really don't care that much, and our paths don't cross enough that it matters at all to anyone. But people like to sort of stir shit up and remember things, and they put their own things on things. But a long time ago, maybe a year ago, definitely a year ago, I remember because it was my brother's birthday. I accidentally sort of got in the middle of a fight Kumia was having with a friend of mine, Matt D. I didn't really know. I did a whole thing about it back then. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just looking at Twitter for a second. I saw this thing. I was like, hey, what the fuck? So I chimed in. But then basically Ken Reed, who I thought was a buddy, started taking me on Twitter in like this very heavy, aggressive way, saying that I'm a piece of shit because I go on Kumia's show because Kumia's like a pro-Trump guy and all that. I was just like, hey, man, if I only went on people's shows that I respected every one of their opinions, I wouldn't go on many shows. And Kumia's been such a hero to comedians. It's an honor to do his fucking show. Fuck you. But he said some stuff on Twitter that I thought was like over the line, or at the very least just fucking cunty and lame. So I blocked him and I just went on with my life. And then when I was doing the podcast, I didn't mention his name on any of the shows I went on. I went on Kumia right after that. I didn't mention his name, even though I could have, because I didn't want to give him any attention for being a shit. But then on my own podcast, without saying his name, I did. I don't know if I said his name or not, but I don't think I did actually. But I was shitting on him and what he had done and what he had said, and I kind of went on a rant making fun of him, a roast rant. And one of the things I made fun of was he likes to collect, he likes to be different, and he likes to be as sort of unique as possible, and he's one of those kind of guys. He's the original hipster. He just likes to have, no one has this kind of coffee table that I have, and no one has this issue of this comic, and he collects things. So I was making fun of him, and in my rant, I was like, even his wife is English. He went to England. He came back with an English wife. Even his wife has to be different, And it was a joke, and I didn't think it was too far, but a couple quote comedians were like, you really crossed the line there, man. Making fun of a guy is one thing, but bringing his wife into it. And I was just kind of like, all right. First of all, it's not like I called his wife like some like an ugly whore. I just said she was English, which she was, and I'm sure, they got married because they love each other, and not because I had made this, not because she was English, I actually have enjoyed his wife's company. I've met her a couple of times, but it was just something I said in the heat of a comedic rant. But it made me laugh that so many comics, more than a few comics, kind of told me that they thought it was so brutal and so funny, and then a bunch of other comics, I guess, sort of took some social justice-y shit with it and have been kind of like talking shit behind my back with it, which is probably, they did the math on who's going to help him more, me or Ken Reed, and then they found out it was Ken. So then they were like, well, let me just shit on Will because that's how you get ahead in life. I don't know. Am I being a brat again like I was at Nick's Comedy Stop? Look how small this fucking crowd is, huh? Anyway, didn't get to any of the topics, so I guess I'll do those next week. But it's good to be back, motherfuckers. Thanks for listening. I got to go do this comedy fucking gig. It's not even a real gig. I'm just trying out some new jizzy jokes. Jizzy jokes. Jizz. All right, y'all. Buy an album or a t-shirt or something. It's the holiday season. You can find all my shit at willnoonan.com. I could use the dough. Donate. willnoonan.com. Whatever you got to do. Tell your friends. If you're listening from Artie and Anthony, welcome. Thank you. And if no one told you they love you today, I do. Peace out. Test. Ba, 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 ba. Testing. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing. Test 1 1 1 2 2 2 3 3 3. Test 1 1 1 2 2 2 3 3 3. Test 1 1 1. Testing. Motherfucker. Test 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2. Testing. Test. That's too quiet now. How come it never comes back? This is how I'm gonna talk. Test. Testing. All right, this is good enough. Good morning. 1 2 3. Good morning. 3 2 1. 3 2 1. Good morning. 3 2 1. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is where you are. Thank you for listening to Hypothetically with Will Noon, and that's me coming at you right now from Public Alley 432. I'm over in downtown Boston. I'm kind of near McGreevy's Pub, where I will be doing a spot in an hour or so. But I was like, hey, let's do a podcast. It's been too long. It's been a couple weeks. Sorry. I've been busy as a motherfucker. I've done like 8 other podcasts of other people's in that time. And I've been working and I've been sick. But you know what? I'll tell you all about that shit. We'll get to it. But how are you? Before we get started, how are you doing? Good? You all right? Tell me about your day. Really? Well, that's interesting. Things are good, though? Yeah. All right, good. I like that. But anyway, where have I been? What have I been doing? I got a good list of notes to tell you guys about. So let's go all the way back to like Thanksgiving time. It was about the last time I put out a podcast. Had a great time on Thanksgiving with the family. But I went to go see one of the haven't podcasted in a couple weeks. Stuttering right now. Went to see one of the greatest comedians of all time. One of my top 5, probably top 3 comedians of all time that I love. And that is Chris Rock. The one, the only Chris Rock. All right, I'm going to start this podcast over. I've decided. This is just shitty energy. I got a rainy energy. Boom. Testing. 1 2 3. 3 2 1. 1 2 3.